What questions should you ask about a house before you see it? Hi, everybody. My name is Chris. I'm from homesand719.com. I recently had a client reach out to me and had a whole list of questions that they wanted to get answered prior to scheduling a showing. And while that's great to have a list of things that you're curious about on a house, I don't ever recommend that you try to get answers to those prior to seeing the house. There might be a couple exceptions to that for sure, but if you're disabled and you want to clarify, can you get to the house or whatever? But if you do have a list, like say you want to know the age of the roof and the furnace, the water heater, and various other property related specific property related questions, I don't recommend you get answers to those prior to scheduling, showing, and seeing it. And here's why. Typically speaking, nobody else is going to do that. None of the other buyers that are competing for the house are going to do that. And when we send over a whole list of questions prior to scheduling and seeing it, it typically annoys not only the listing agent, but also the seller. The seller is got a lot of stuff going on in their plate. They're trying to sell a house. They're trying to clean things up. They're trying to pack. They're also trying to shop for their own house. They might be going in and out of their current house and having to clean it, put the dogs away and take the kids to school and events. And so trying to get them to answer a series of questions prior to them knowing that they have a committed buyer is likely to create more friction than we want, especially when you're the only buyer doing it. So, what can you do? You do want these questions, and the conventional process, let's call it, allows for this. So you would schedule a showing, you would go through and you would see it and decide from that you are interested in the property, and you submit an offer, you negotiate through that offer and get it accepted. At that point, there's a whole bunch of things that you can do. Sorry about that. There's a whole bunch of things you can do. You need to submit your earnest money within 3 days. Okay. And lock in the contract. You then get to schedule an inspection if you had that in your offer. So you get probably 7 to 14 days to do an inspection. And during that period, you can inspect whatever you want as long as you don't damage the house. And if you do damage the house, you got to put it back. So that can be a different video. But, if you have questions like the roof, the age of the roof, and things like that, even before you spend $500 to $700 on a home inspection, you can go and I can assist with that and point you in the right direction to go validate what permits run the house, building permits. So that will tell you how old the house was, how old the water heater is, how old the furnace is, because all of those require permits. Now, it's not to say that the homeowner might replace one of these items without pulling a permit, which he shouldn't do. But when we look at the item and we go, that looks newer than it says in the permit, right? That's typically what would happen. The permit would be older than the device. So we would look through that, try to get those answers. We can send a list of questions to the seller at that point, maybe asking a whole bunch of additional details. The seller will also at that point send us what's called a seller's property disclosure. It's a form that the state of Colorado has created for the seller to disclose to the buyer all the things that the buyer would never know if the seller didn't tell them. And it is a, 10-page document. It goes through all the utilities, all the services, inside, outside the building, the kitchen, the appliances, the garage doors, openers, all sorts of stuff that the seller needs to disclose to you, the current state, foundation, all sorts of stuff. It's really thorough. In my experience, most sellers return that nearly blank. In some cases, it might be deliberate, but in most cases, there's just not that much information that they need to tell the buyer that the buyer can't see, right? But they give that to you, so it gives you an opportunity to read that. Either before hiring a home inspector to go through, or maybe during that process, and then you can have the home inspector look at those specific items that was in the seller's property disclosure. You also might get those answers back from the seller that you submitted quickly to them, and you can have the home inspector look at that. And then if at that point you find any defects that are no-goes, basically you're not going to buy the house unless the seller fixes it, then you can ask the seller to fix it. The seller can then say yes, no, or counter it and give you a different solution. And you go back and forth and try to negotiate that. And then at that point, you either come to a consensus and agree via document, or you agree to disagree, terminate the contract, and get your earnest money back. So that's the more conventional way to go through and do that. Frankly, I think asking questions first is better. Is I don't say better, but it's more efficient, right? But it's just not what the convention is. And when it comes to negotiating a high value asset like a home, I highly recommend you try not to do things your way. Try to do it the conventional way, work the process the way that the seller is used to doing. Don't create any ruffles, especially before they accept your offer. You want to, man, if you can do anything, you want to try to figure out how to give them something in it before you submit an offer, so that way you can ask for it back in the offer. But that it is very much a psychological game, that it's a strategy that you need to think about when you're buying a house, that you go through and try to keep the win-loss right about the middle, where the seller isn't losing and you're not gaining, but you're getting a house at a reasonable price in reasonable condition, and the seller's not getting a reasonable price. And it's just better that way if you just keep it well balanced in there, to keep emotions out. If it gets too out of whack one way or the other, emotions come into play. People dig in their heels and they make things a nightmare for you. So, just my recommendation when it comes to questions that you might have that you think you want to ask before you see a house, because you don't want to waste the seller's time, you don't want to waste your time, the agent's time, and all that's true. However, it's better to maintain convention, and that is to go see it, confirm that there's nothing in there that might turn you off, and it's really not a big deal from the buyer's agent side. It's not a big deal from the seller or the selling agent side, because it's what everybody else is doing. So it seems completely normal. It's not an imposition kind of thing. So once again, I hope you found this video useful. My name is Chris. I'm the owner of Homes in 719. If you like the video, do the thumbs up thing and all the other silly stuff. And if you have any questions about it, please put that down below. If you want a video on something else, let me know what that might be. And I hope you have a good day. Thanks for watching. Bye.